Okay, so I was gonna make a video about the League of Legends fighting game 2XKO. Specifically, I was actually in the middle of editing a video about what characters I think would be most likely to be added into the game. It would have been pretty casual, just kind of me voiceover, like putting things into a tier list. Probably would have been pretty long, but pretty light on the editing. I don't know, whatever. Well, as I'm almost done getting the audio cut up and spliced together, Riot Games releases a bit of news regarding 2XKO.
Bruh.
So immediately I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll just scrap that and rework it into something else. But then, while I was in the middle of writing a new script, this came out, where they revealed 2 new characters, plus affirmation that they're going to continue developing on the game in spite of the layoffs and stuff. So I'm like, ah! So basically, I'm just tired of trying to deal with dancing around this video. So you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna give the top 10 characters that I want to see in this game, 2XKO. The League of Legends fighting game. Sorry if this is a bit rambly, I just didn't really have time to script this because I want to get this video out as quickly as possible so I can move on. Now, before I get to the list itself, I want to establish a couple things. Number one, these are not necessarily the characters that I think will be in the game. These are the characters that I personally would love to see in the game. You get the difference? In terms of the criteria of what characters I picked, obviously it's all personal and subjective, but for the most part, I tried to pick characters that I think would be very unique, both gameplay-wise and visually, from the characters that are already in the game. Finally, before I get to the list itself, I do want to cover some honorable mentions. Those being Irelia, Jax, Katarina, Lee Sin, Riven, Set, Udyr, and Xin Zhao. All of these characters I think would be great to have in 2XKO. The only reason I don't have them in my top 10 list is because I don't really have anything to say about them. What do you know? The characters that fight a lot would be really good for a fighting game. Crazy. Again, nothing against any of these characters. I would love to see them in the game, but for my top 10 list, I wanted to go with picks that were a little more interesting and that to me would be a little more exciting. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Now, on a surface level, Aatrox does seem like a bit of a generic pick because, he's a guy with a giant sword. But unlike many other characters in this game that wield swords, Aatrox has a lot going for him in the aesthetics department. For one thing, he's a Darkin, which we don't have yet. If you don't play League and or you don't know what a Darkin is, basically they're vengeful spirits that were trapped inside of their weapons, and they're very, very pissed off. That's more or less it. Aatrox is basically kind of the face of the entire Darkin race. He's by far the most iconic of them, both in universe and as a champion in League of Legends. His design is really cool. I think his effects and animations would look really nice in a fighting game. And most importantly, I think he offers a lot of cool gameplay opportunities too. Obviously there's his Q in League, which I think would translate pretty perfectly to a fighting game. But also, the thing about Aatrox is that he transforms in his ult, meaning for the purposes of a fighting game, he could serve the role as the resident install character, having one of his supers transform him into a more powerful form. And yeah, I know we have Warwick for that, but his works a little bit differently. His Fury is its own separate resource. This would be more like a traditional install character where it uses his super. All right, this might be a bit of a sneak, especially since we already have a lot of marksman and ranged characters in the game already, but man, come on, Kindred is just so cool. They are the Grim Reaper of the League of Legends universe, and they're dynamic as both a lamb and a wolf who complement each other both visually and thematically. Would be really cool to see in action. If they did add Kindred, I would much prefer if they had Wolf in his full-bodied form, rather than just the disembodied head that they have in League of Legends. But in any case, I think there's a lot you could do with Kindred, and frankly, their theming and design alone would make them worth adding, in my opinion. Kindred is one of my favorite designed characters in the game, and no, that's not just because of Lamb. I legitimately think that they are one of the most cohesive and well put together champion designs in the entire game. Well deserving of a spot in 2XKO. Neeko is an interesting one, because at first glance, she doesn't seem like she would be that good for a fighting game. I mean, obviously she fights and uses different damaging abilities in League, but her design is kind of weird. She's like part person, part chameleon kind of thing. Her characterization is very naive and playful, although I do like the composition of her design. The vibrant colors really makes it pop. But what really sells Neeko for me is the potential of her gameplay. Think about what Neeko does in League of Legends. What is her most defining gimmick? That's right, her ability to mimic other players. Essentially, Neeko could be this game's Shang Tsung, able to transform into other characters temporarily to use their abilities. including your opponents, so you could use their own abilities against them. Compared to Shang Tsung and other similar characters, Nico has a completely different vibe, that being more of a playful trickster rather than some deceitful sorcerer, which would make it a lot more unique within the realm of fighting games as a whole. I really feel like people sleep on Nico. I think she's a really strong character design that has a lot of potential for a fighting game like this. I feel like Thresh is just one of those characters where I don't even really have to talk about him that much because just look at him. Like, come on. He's a robed, flaming skeleton who captures people's souls and puts them in his lantern. If you're not sold on this character already, then I'm not sure I can do anything else to convince you. But I'll try my damnedest. While Thresh is a support character in League, 2XKO has already shown that they're not against throwing in more supportive characters, such as Braum and Blitzcrank. And while yes, you could argue that Thresh's hook ability does kind of overlap with Blitzcrank's niche, I think there are definitely ways they could implement it so it would be its own distinct style. Because remember, Thresh's hook is really a flay. It's essentially a whip weapon, while his Blitzcrank just straight up throws hands. There's a lot of ways you could make him play a lot differently. And again, just come on, look at this guy. I swear to God, if they add Thresh, they better not add his dumbass human form from Wild Rift. Damn you, China, what is your deal with skeletons? They're cool. Whenever I see discussions about the roster for this game, I'm always shocked by the consistent absence of Azir. To me, he seems like a shoo-in. First of all, he's from a region that doesn't really have any presence in the game so far, that being Shurima. Shurima is actually super important to the League of Legends lore, and there's a ton of champions from it. And what better champion to add than the Emperor of Shurima himself? He's got a really cool design, his ability to manipulate and use sand to create soldiers and stuff. It's a little reminiscent of Geras from Mortal Kombat, but I think the actual implementation would be much different. I could see him being more of a puppet master character, where he summons soldiers and sets up traps around the arena. They could even reference his passive by having him use sand to create constructs and buff zones, making him a really strong area control character, which would be reflective of how he plays in League. And while yeah, Azir isn't the most popular character in terms of play rate, he is nonetheless very iconic thanks to his strong presence in pro play. Even though not that many people play him in the grand scheme of things, pretty much everyone knows who he is, which is a big point in his favor. And last but not least, he's a bird. One of the hardest regions to come up with champions for to put in 2XKO is Demacia. Not that I don't like the characters from Demacia, far from it, but the problem is that they're just kind of boring. Obviously that's by design, but for a fighting game, I really don't see any reason to add characters like Garen, Fiora, or Jarvan, when there would be other characters that would fulfill their niche much better and with much more interesting aesthetics and special attacks. There is, however, one exception. That being Poppy. Yeah, I know, she's another Yordle, and we already have Teemo, but come on, it's not like we're limited to just one Yordle. They're a pretty prominent species within the League universe. And besides, I think for a fighting game, Poppy has a lot of potential to be really fun. She would fulfill the old niche of the tiny character wielding huge weapon type of fantasy. And plus, if you look at her abilities in League, I feel like they would translate pretty much one-to-one in a fighting game. Slamming the ground to create a little quake zone, dashing into the enemy to slam them against the wall, throwing her buckler as a projectile, creating a field around her that prevents enemies from using dashes or advanced movement. Even her ult has a lot of potential for use in super attacks. Honestly, Poppy's just kind of perfect for 2XKO. If we were only to add one Demacian character, I would be extremely satisfied if Poppy was that choice. Or like Sylas, I guess, but man, Sylas. All my homies hate Sylas. I am pro Demacia for life. Okay, this is probably the weirdest pick I have on my list, especially to have this high, but just hear me out. So the Void is a pretty big part of League of Legends lore, but the problem with the Void is that there's not very many good choices for a fighting game. A lot of the Void champions are very monstrous, which is, makes sense, because they literally are monsters from more or less another dimension. But as such, I don't know if many of them would fit or even be that interesting in a fighting game. And the ones that would are the ones that, well, aren't monsters. But there is one exception though, that being Vel'Koz. Now some of you might be wondering why I would even put him on this list, but allow me to educate you with these official characters that are in other actual fighting games. Yeah, so it turns out the whole idea of a giant eyeball tentacle monster is actually not new at all for a fighting game. And while you could argue that that makes this pick a little less interesting, well, you're not wrong, but really, I feel like this is the type of character that 2XKO really needs. Something truly off the wall, a true monster that just doesn't fit in with anyone else, but still is really fun to play. Now, I think canonically, Vel'Koz is like colossal, which could be a problem because 2XKO seems to be paying a little more respect to the canon sizes of characters, but yeah, whatever. I don't think most people would really care. Vel'Koz is sick. I think it would be really funny if they added him into the game, especially to see people's reactions to it. And if they do add him, I will definitely play him. Mordekaiser is one of those characters that I am shocked is not in the game already. He's kind of got everything going for him. Sporting a metal as fuck design and a set of abilities that would translate really well to a fighting game. I'm honestly not really sure what to say. I probably could have included him in the honorable mentions because I think everyone just pretty much understands why he would be a really good pick, but I wanted to include him on here because I enjoy playing Mordekaiser, and I'm really just kind of shocked that he's not in the game already. He's super popular, he's really important to the lore, especially for Noxus. And man, I just want to smack people with a mace. I'm not entirely sure how they would translate his ult into the game, but I think they could figure something out. It's such an iconic part of his modern kit. I'm sure they could find a way to make it work.
You're going to Brazil!
Nunu and Willump are just so good, man. One of my favorite champion designs in the entire game, and I think it's pretty easy to see why. They're just so cute. The giant fluffy four-armed Yeti monster who has no right to be as cute as he is, ridden by an adventurous child who loves snowballs. There's a lot of great characters from the Freljord, like a lot of really good choices. But to me, other than Braum, Nunu and Willump is by far the best character that they could add from that region. And not only do they look super cool, but gameplay-wise, I think they would be really unique as well. Those of you who played Mortal Kombat X may remember there was a character called Ferrator, basically a giant hulking monster character piloted by a smaller child character. I could see Nunu and Willump working almost exactly like that, with both characters working in tandem for their attacks and specials. It would probably be hell to animate, but hey, that's not my job. I'm just here to say what I think might be a good idea. Notably, Nunu and Willump is the only champion on this list that actually has their own game. Song of Nunu was a licensed indie game that was published by Riot a few years ago. And while yeah, it wasn't a smashing success, I feel like it's pretty telling about Nunu and Willump's popularity and the strength of their design, that they could have their own game like that. Easily a top tier choice to put in 2XKO, but there's just one character that I think would be a little bit better. Fiddlesticks is by far my most wanted character for this game, unironically. There are so many reasons I think Fiddlesticks would be great for 2XKO, it's kind of hard for me to narrow it down, but I'll do my best to summarize. Firstly, he's a demon, specifically the Demon of Fear. We currently don't have any actual demon characters in the game yet, which is a little bit surprising considering they tend to be fairly popular. The demons aren't like super important to League of Legends lore, but they have been around as characters in the game for a long time, and like, you gotta include at least one of them. And if you are going to include any of them, you might as well make it the best one. Fiddlesticks is a masterclass of design, post-rework. We don't talk about the pre-rework version. Everything about him, his visuals, his voice, provided by Kellen Goff, the voice of Freddy Fazbear.
Gregory.
His animations, his abilities, the fact that he wields a scythe as his main weapon, which is really sick. And similar to Vel'Koz, I really think that 2XKO needs some characters like this. Some absolute weirdos who don't fit the mold of the traditional attractive heroes or muscled up fighters. The only thing that I'm not entirely sure how they would get to work would be his passive, where he summons fake decoys of himself to throw off his enemies. But I don't think it would be impossible to come up with something for that. Man, I really want Fiddlesticks in this game. Where's my horror-themed character, damn it? Okay, well, there you go. There's the top 10 characters that I want in 2XKO. Sorry if this video has seemed a little frantic or like I was trying to blast through it, because quite frankly, I kind of was. I still enjoyed making it, don't get me wrong, but just, this game has been such a roller coaster of updates. I just want to get this video out before anything else changes and it's already out of date. Oh well. What do y'all think? What characters do you want to see in this game? Considering there's over like 160 champions in League of Legends, everyone's going to have a different set of characters that they really want to see in this game. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. I really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe for updates on content from me. But that's all from me for now. My name is Nova Starkyle, and I will see you next time.